Wild Moon Sessions podcast. My name is Bexy, and today I am talking to Jennifer Lane. Jennifer is based in Lancashire, and she is currently and has just finished writing her book, The Wheel, which we are going to be talking about. We're also going to be talking through cycles of life. Jennifer, would you like to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. So, hi everyone. My name is Jennifer Lane, and I'm a freelance writer, an environmentalist. And as Bexy said, I've just written a book called The Wheel, which is out with September Publishing in October. So, yes, that's been a really exciting experience. The book is around my journey with witchcraft and paganism and how I returned to it after quite a stressful period of my life. So, yeah, it's been a wonderful experience.
So when you're talking about pagan ritual and witchcraft and all of those things, talk about that a little bit. I'm sure there's a few people who are like, oh, what is this? What is this?
Yeah, so paganism is a sort of overarching umbrella term for people who revere nature and really respect its cycles and observe the seasons. They might do rituals, they might just walk in the woods and feel connected with everything around them. But whereas witchcraft is a specific form of paganism, so you don't have to be a witch to be a pagan. Witchcraft usually involves more rituals, manifestation. Maybe you work alone or work together, but it's a more concentrated form where you're looking at herbs, working with nature to bring about change in your life. So I identify as a green witch, which is working with plants in nature, but there are lots of different forms of witches out there.
I love that. I love how you've just explained it. That's so digestible too, because I think that actually sometimes, like when people say paganism, there's just so much I want to say taboo around that word, actually. And actually, yeah, I relate to being a green witch, and I relate to being a pagan, and I relate to being a white witch sometimes. You know, like sometimes there's ways and means of understanding these things, because I actually think that paganism is that's a natural state, isn't it, for us to return to always, the way that you've just described it, particularly like really feeling connected with all of the energies that surround you.
Totally, yeah. I mean, the people that have gone even just a few generations before us would have had such better access to nature. It would have been a much clearer and more defined part of their lives, whereas now we've sort of moved away from that. We're quite separate from nature. If we want to spend time in our environment, we have to go a few extra steps. We have to sort of step outside of our towns. We have to get on a train to do it. Whereas, people in times gone by would have been a lot closer to that and had that relationship with the earth.
And what do you feel like, what's the nourishment and sustenance? What's the most important thing that you've derived from your experience specifically, both with writing your book, but also that, like, claiming the pagan and green witch within you?
Yeah. So there was quite a long period in my life where I didn't define myself as pagan or a green witch. I think I just got caught up in like the general momentum that the working world puts on us, and sort of getting very swept away with technology and just being social. But actually, in the past 2 or 3 years, I've really come back to those roots that I started in my teenage years of being interested in witchcraft. And for me, it's just felt like such a homecoming to really return to those natural places and feel peaceful and calm, and also feel like you don't have to rely on the modern world. Like the earth itself is supporting you and helping you feel calm after a stressful period.
That's beautiful. That's a really beautiful thing, and I have to say I echo that 100%. 100%. One of the things that I love actually about being out in nature, and this was one of in a very, very stressful time in my life, I began to take pictures of things that in macro and micro, and how they were exactly the same.
Wow.
And this fascinated me for years. This idea of sounds being so similar to one another, or water looking specifically the same as another body of water, but on a larger scale. You know, like this kind of idea of the reflection in the mirror across all of nature, and how it's so consistent and synced, and everything is expressed in so many forms, and how actually there is an unending and limitless amount of medicine in that. And I think that that's actually was my first step back into that sort of natural pagan observation more than anything. And then that allowed me to see how that really reflected within my body and all of that. So yeah, I love the fact that you're saying, you know, yeah, we are very swept up in the modern day, I want to say, expectations of what life can be or should look like. For me, I don't know whether you relate to this, Jen, but I really want to know how everything feels rather than what it looks like.
Yes, 100%. Can I just say that everything you've just said is such a gorgeous reflection. I'm just kind of like lost in that right now. But yes, that kind of sensory feelings of being in nature. Sometimes I just want to lie down on like a mossy bed and just sort of feel it sort of absorb me. That's the kind of level of engagement with nature that I want. I like literally want it to take me into it. So like having those moments where you're outside and you know you've left your phone at home. Oh my god. And you just feel like absolutely connected with the world around you. So yeah, like I said, that's been something that I moved away from for quite some time, like from in my early 20s to sort of my mid 20s, and then I came back to it a few years ago, and that's what's inspired the book, because it was such a massive leap for me to go from like constant 9 to 5, and that was all that was in my head. And then I took a step back and was actually thinking, oh, this is who I'm meant to be, this person who's in nature constantly. So yeah, the book was my journey back to the person that I wanted to be.
That's beautiful, and you're sharing that with people. That's got to be such an empowering thing for both you, and it's going to be an empowering thing for your readers, you know.
Well, I hope so. I'm quite nervous about it, really, because it's out so soon, and I think there's that part of me that's going like, oh, did I open up too much? Did I give too much of myself away there? But no, I think it's important to be sharing these stories right now. Yeah, I think we're at a changing point in our lives, aren't we? Everyone's talking about the shift that's happening. So I feel that these stories are very important, sort of encourage others as well to sort of get out and explore things outside of their comfort zone.
Have you, so in your book, is there a specific little taster, or is there a ritual that you feel has just been like an anchor? Is there a specific thing that anchors you in that process or practice?
Yeah, so the book is quite like it's a narrative form, so it's me sort of, I don't know, explaining what's going on around me. But within that, there are quite a few rituals, and the book, The Wheel, which is based around the wheel of the year, which is a pagan idea of a cycle. So we move through the seasons in a cyclical way, but always comes back to that same point in the year. So within the book, I observe different rituals at different points in the year. There are different pagan festivals that people will celebrate and do all sorts of things for, but I tend to do a ritual. And one of the things that I really found helped me in my process was I was out in nature, I found the perfect tree. You know, when a tree speaks to you, that's probably a bit weird, but I feel like it's like I should. It does. But yeah, I feel like I found the perfect tree to sort of sit under and be in this ritual space. And when I performed my ritual, I looked up and I found 2 deer just walking past me. And I really felt the goddess or Mother Nature in that moment there. And I think that when you're so lost in that ritual space, I feel like anything can happen. And to have two deer wandering in quite a central city centre place just felt so magical to me. And I sort of go back and visit that experience in my head, thinking like, yeah, that was it. That was almost proof to me that this is working for me and that I knew I was on the right path.
No, that's beautiful, particularly deer as well, because they have so much symbology surrounding them, don't they? They're so gentle, and but so much. They always talk about the way that deer's their antlers actually reach towards the sky, and how that makes them quite spiritual to encounter, and how I've read so many books on on different forms of connecting with nature, but I think that the animals have so much medicine. Creature teachers, as Jamie Sams calls them, creature teachers. They each have this little message for us, and I think that's so beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. So is it like Imbolc and Samhain, and are those the typical sort of, if we're talking about the cyclical cycle of things, are those do you observe those, or do you just intuit when you need to go out and do a ritual in that sense?
So yeah, I suppose it's a bit of both, really. Yeah, I think if you're feeling in the moment and really want to celebrate that connection with nature, you can just go out and do this any time of the year. Maybe on a full moon, maybe on a new moon. But yeah, with the book, I was observing the more traditional festivals. So you've got Samhain, you've got Imbolc, like you say. That particular experience that I was just talking about was actually on Beltane, which is May Day, and it felt quite fortuitous. Like it just felt like a very fertile, rich time, which is what is associated with that period anyway. So the book starts with Samhain, which is Halloween, on the 31st of October, and we work our way through Yule, or the sort of pagan form of Christmas, and all the way through to the summer months. And I think that when I'm observing, I tend to observe the winter festivals a lot more. I think that when summer comes around and you have things like Beltane and Letha and Lammas, or Lunasa as they call it in August, I just want to be outside. I don't want to be like having that introspective time to look at myself. I want to be out and like really in the sunshine. So for me, the periods of the year that I observe tend to be in the sort of autumn, winter months, where you can look inwards a bit more.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's really, really beautiful. Because I think that actually that's the natural time for a bit more reflection and introspection. And Samhain, I always think it's so special. And my favourite pagan festival or observation is actually Imbolc, because I really, really connect with the goddess that's associated with it, Brigida, and the Celtic goddess, I should say. But I love that time of year, because we actually up here in the north of England, we actually have celebrations of these things, from going from winter into spring, and then the green man arriving. So taking those sorts of characters, or the narratives, or the archetypes, and playing with them. But I love what fire offers us. And like you say, Beltane, it's like, oh wow, it's like coming up to all of this fruitful energy. And for me, Imbolc is the very beginning of that. And I think that's such a special time, because everything is to come.
Yes. Yeah.
And that for me is such a blessing, actually. That feeling is just so, oh wow.
I know that feeling very well. Yeah, after all those sort of cold months inside, it's just so hopeful when you light a candle on Imbolc on the sort of 1st, 2nd of February, and really feel like, oh, this is the beginning of it. This is the first spark of fire. And yeah, I really relate to that.
I just think there's so much to actually observe the cycle as well, because as we were just talking about before, I think a lot of people see the year in a linear format, from January to December. And actually, anything that's time related, we are told that it's linear, timelines, all this sort of stuff. to my knowledge, nothing is linear in all of the work that I do. And everything that you're describing as well, Jen, really, really reminds me of shamanic practice as well. So it's all one and the same, you know, it all has the different arms and expressions of it. But for me, just even acknowledging a cycle and understanding where you're at within that cycle, whether it's within yourself, whether it's within a season, whether it's within a relationship, whether it's within, I don't know, your growth, or even what, I've got sunflowers outside and they're just getting to the bit where they want to flower and they're really growing. They're growing so much each day. It's understanding that cycle. It's understanding all of these cycles within cycles within cycles that are designed for us to thrive, right?
Oh, yes, that is so lovely. Yes, I really feel like understanding the cycles, within yourself. So, you know, as a woman, like looking at the menstrual cycle and how that makes you feel at different times of the month. But also within nature, I think having an understanding of the progression of flora and fauna throughout the year. So what is happening in your garden or in the wild right now. So at in bulk, you'll see the daffodils coming up, the crocuses, and like how does that make you feel? What medicine do those plants have to give you? And then as you go through the year, the colours change. And at this time, so we're in August now, you have more of the pink flowers, the willow herb coming through. And it really helps you to know your place within the year and to understand how it connects with your own growth and feelings. I don't know about you, but I also observe the moon cycles and sort of do rituals of manifestation and abundance at those times of year. Is that something that you relate to as well?
Yeah, very deeply. Yeah, I've developed, particularly this year, I've developed a big new moon, full moon observation rituals or journaling, or, you know, there's something quite deep. And actually my moon cycle is synced with the new moon rather than the full moon. So it used to be the opposite way around. And I personally think it's because I am observing that, and it's wanting to be connected in a deeper way. So yeah, moon cycles and this is also another thing, you know, I've learned over the past couple of years, guys have cycles. They're just much shorter than ours. And honestly, they're not as observed, obviously. Or, you know, like the need for their cycle to be shorter or to observe what they need within, say, a week. Their observation period might be a week rather than a month. But they have to have all of these different feelings within a week, or, you know, there is a lot of that John Gray talks about it actually, to do with hormonal balancing and our bodies and how they regulate themselves. And actually, when you observe your cycles, whether you are male or female or however you identify, when you observe your personal cycles, you actually regulate and you biohack. So it's actually really beneficial for your body.
Wow.
Yeah. So even me saying to you, Jen, I hear you, that's something that boosts your hormones. For me to tell a guy, I appreciate you, that will boost his hormones. Again, depending on how everybody identifies, but this is something that we can move even into our language to appreciate one another and to help each other biohack. And I think, you know, like hugging each other, everybody knows that that's just, it's cathartic, but it's actually really, really healthy. It helps us to regulate with one another. It helps us to, it helps women specifically. If you get more than a 3-second hug, it gives your hormones a boost and it reduces stress in your body. So there are so many things that actually within cycles, when you observe them, you can actually know, actually, at this point in my cycle, I really need cold showers. Or at this point in my cycle, I need to dance like crazy, which I do a lot. Or at this point in my cycle, I need to go for a massive hike, no phone, just me and nature. You know, it's kind of Would you relate to that? Do you feel like the cycle has given you more detail as to what you feel you need?
Oh, completely. Yes. Yeah. Just being able to, well, I wonder if it's the cycle that's given me that, or whether it's just that I've become more introspective during this process. Like, I really think I've given myself the time to sit down and really appreciate the cycles, which I just wasn't doing before, just really like blazing through life. But it's so interesting that you say that, you know, everybody can relate to these cycles. So even then we wouldn't traditionally have associated with a cyclical life. If they have those shorter cycles, they can go outside and appreciate things in a different way. But yeah, it's something that maybe we could all bring more into our lives. And like you say, to really reflect it in language that we're using and having those conversations with people. How are you feeling today? Why do you think that is? Is it because of the weather? Is it because of a certain thing that's happening in this season in particular? I know that during the autumn period, that, you know, we have that sort of changeover from summer to autumn where a lot of people get sick. A lot of people have dry, itchy scalps because of the different energy that's coming in to it. So I think that we can all be working with the seasons and really seeing how it's affecting our energy levels, just so that we can, you know, give each other a break, you know, so we don't have to always be full on all the time. It could be that time when we need to take a step back and go, actually, like you say, things aren't linear. We need to just roll with this cycle.
Yeah, and be able to really, I think that that's digging into your own self-care, but just on a different level. And I really do feel as though when you observe the cycles within yourself and also within others, you can hold space in a different way for another person, you know. And I think that that's something that will enhance your life as a human, because it'll give you the ability to be able to really just be, rather than, because I remember that feeling of identifying more with not knowing my body, or not knowing why I felt certain things at certain times. And actually, there's nothing stopping you from accessing that knowledge within yourself, because ultimately we are made of earth, we are earth, we function like earth because we are earth, and we're here to learn it, really. That's kind of what I feel. And when we're shown all of this beauty, and when we're shown the ultimate nurturer having seasons, having cycles, you know, Mother Earth, nothing exists on this earth with that she doesn't produce in some way. She's produced us, so therefore we produce things, and nothing, literally, in my mind, is man-made in that way. So for us to actually observe her and to integrate deeper relationships with that within our life is actually just returning to our source and returning to our natural energy. And actually that's what builds, because biohacking is all about you using your biology to give yourself what you need, but from a different perspective. So whether it's grounding your feet, I don't know whether you do this, I do lots of barefoot walking, because I love being out in my garden with my bare feet on the ground, because actually the energy from the earth goes up into your feet and down. So you're constantly in this energetic exchange. And actually that's something that regulates us. It's something that builds our immune system. It's something that builds this sense of immunity, and also builds our sense of resilience as well. So, you know, I think that sometimes we believe that we're separate from nature, and I think that's what technology can lead us to believe. But actually, I'm not sure that anything is separate to nature, but that's also where how I feel.
Yes. Well, I think that over the past probably 100 years, we've all been taking steps to move away from the cycles of Mother Nature and make our farming industry very the same, like monocultures, and very much the same model throughout the year. We want to be producing crops that we want to be eating broccoli in every month of the year, rather than just at the seasonal point of, when it exists. But yes, to go back to your barefoot walking, yes, my feet are a mess because it's all I do. I just walk outside in my garden the whole time, just feeling that connection. And one of the things that I discovered whilst I was writing the book and doing some research was that trees actually help to boost our immune system, not just because they're nice to look at and nice to be around, but they actually release a chemical that will fight off parasites on their bark. And if we are exposed to it, we absorb that chemical, and it actually helps us boost our immune system. So, just what an amazing thing for nature to give to us. That's free. We can just go outside and absorb that feeling. But yeah, nature is here to help us. And I think that, within my circles, maybe not in sort of the mainstream, but we are all taking steps to move back to those typical ways of being. And living in a more traditionally feminine way, in a bit of more of a slowed down, really taking our time, rather than rushing through in this traditionally masculine fashion that the world of work has been centered around. So yeah, having that time to be feminine, or just who you are, just sort of slowing down and really taking stock of what's around you is so important.
Oh yeah. And feeds you so much, right? It feeds your soul in so many different ways. And so obviously, just to come back to your book, Jen, why have you done it at this moment? Like, what is your full and true intention with it? Was it just to transparently share, or do you feel like it's a really important time for people to see Earth as medicine and everything that we've just talked about, essentially?
So I think it's two reasons, really. I think exactly that, what you've just said, in that now is such a really potent time for healing, and so many of us need it right now, after everything we've gone through over the past couple of years, but also just because of where society has led us and the point that we're at. But also with me, I've always had this sense that I've wanted to write something that would help other people. So I've written children's books in the past, sort of in my own time, just sort of looking at ways to help people find the resources that I didn't have access to when I was a teenager. But now, writing this book, I've realised how, from the feedback I've received already, that people really relate to it and can see themselves, see the journey that I was on, and really place themselves in that at that point as well, where it was a very stressful job, very low period of my life that I think a lot of people experience. And writing the book, I have hope that it will help other people to sort of come through those periods in their life and realise that everything around them is here to support, rather than to detract from their lives, or to make them feel like they're missing out on anything. Like, you can go outside, you have that ability to go and experience those things that are right there in front of us. So that was the intention behind the book. And yeah, I just feel that writing it has been an incredibly cathartic experience for me. I'm just really happy that it's out there and that message is being shared.
That sounds like a ritual in and of itself, just like sitting down to document the process that you've been through. It sounds like I relate to that as well, because I think anything that helps people, it just feels like such an enriching thing to be able to do. And that's also why I do this podcast. It's why, I like to make everything as accessible as possible. And I think it's what the internet is amazing for. It's what technology is amazing for. And if we can connect those dots and allow people to feel inspired to access a different part of themselves, then that is job done for me. Like that, or guiding people. Like my passion is to guide people back to their bodies, because I absolutely believe that every single question, answer, every exploration that we need is within our bodies. It's just waiting to be expressed. And that's why I believe that these vehicles of love, as I call them, they're absolutely, we are in them for a reason, and ultimately it just takes us engaging with them. But yeah, no, I love that sentiment, and I love the fact that you have picked up on that, because in the grand cycle of things, we are, if you were to think about this astrologically, we are moving from, we're moving into the more of an Aquarian age, which is all to do with, the balance of masculine and feminine It really, really is. And I think so many people can relate to what you've just said. And I am definitely one of them. I am brilliant at being able to manifest for other people. I can do that all day long. Whether it fulfills me or not, that's the question. So
Yeah.
whether it's worthy of my energy, again, is the other question. So I think that deep reverence that you're talking about, it's a deep reverence to yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just a deep reverence for nature and ritual and, you know, a specific cycle, for example, the pagan cycle. It's a reverence that all of that exists within you. We all have our own Imbolc, we all have our own Beltane, we all have our own, and we really can dig into that whenever we feel we want to. I think it's beautiful. I think it's such a powerful thing to be able to share with people, Jen. And I want to say thank you for doing it, because actually I think it takes a lot of courage, and I think it takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of talent to be able to bring that together. So I just want to say thank you for you, and you're amazing there. So thank you for coming on and talking through these beautiful the beautiful story of how you got to where you have with your book. And if you do want to follow Jen, where is best to find you?
Oh yes, so you can follow me on Instagram, which is, I tend to use that more than anything else. I am the Green Witch Writer, all one word. And yeah, that's probably the best place. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for inviting me on here to talk about this, and thank you for your kind words, because it's something that's really close to my heart, and thank you for helping me share it.
I'm really excited to read it. What date is it actually out, Jen?
So it's on the 7th of October, so just before Samhain. You can get it as part of your pagan practice. Yes, yeah, it's so 7 weeks away. Really excited.
Oh, well, congratulations. I just want to say congratulations already, and thank you so much. So if you do want to follow Jen, then please do jump on Instagram and give her a follow. You can also subscribe to this channel below. You can also now support this podcast on Patreon. So please do click through the link tree on my bio on my Instagram for that as well. But thank you so much for being here, for listening to our chat about nature, witchcraft, and just all of the beautiful cycles of life. Sending you so much love for your day, so much appreciation for you. Thank you for you. See you next time.